In the Army.
We're in the special forces?
No, all the Army wears berets.
Oh, they do?
Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, Monday, October 26, 2020 at 6 o'clock. As always, we'll start off with invocation. If you would please stand and join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the day that you've given us. Lord, thank you for your many blessings. Lord, we just ask you to lead and guide and direct us now as we conduct our business of our county. Lord, just continue to be with each and every one who's going through this COVID right now, Lord. We just ask you to put your healing hand on them. And Lord, just thank you for all you do and forgive us where we fail you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please continue to stand for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Or if you approve the agenda,
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Then we move on to our comments from our commissioners and managers. Start with Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight to the meeting, both on those that are on the internet and those that are here. I thought of what I was going to say at the last opening comments of the meeting, so I'm going to say it tonight. I went down and visited the site that we're looking at in Walnut Cove for the new green box site, and I would encourage all the commissioners that are going to vote on that to go down and actually look at that before time comes for you to vote on it, because it's raised a lot of questions in my mind when I went and looked at the actual site. And I think Shannon's got the lady's name, Lisa, and the guy that you can contact to meet you down there whenever you go. So, and I think that at the planning board they didn't have a quorum in Walnut Cove, so it got put off another month. So I'm thinking that may fall to our next board whenever the new board's seated, probably. So somebody can analyze that and figure it out. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Walker.
I want to welcome everyone. I don't know whether you can hear me or not. I thought I'd won the battle with allergies, but I found out they wanted a second round. And I think they're winning this one. Anyway, good to see all of you here. Good to have all of you with us with the streaming. And just thankful for this beautiful day we've had. Really a great time of the year. And with the fall colors, our county is especially beautiful this time of the year. We're probably getting some visits from folks that don't want to ride all the way to the Blue Ridge or farther to see leaves. They can come up to Stokes County and see some pretty scenery. But anyhow, I'll stop there because Commissioner Langford probably has a lot to say.
It is good to see each one out tonight, and we always like to see our community people at the meetings so they can get first-hand information of what's going on. And I just like to thank the Lord for allowing me to be here tonight. And we always have to rely on Him to lead us and guide us. So I thank y'all for being here, and thank this board for the actions that we've been taking. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mendenhall.
Thank you. And I'd just like to re-echo what Commissioner Langford said. Thank all of y'all for being here tonight. It's good to see each and every one of you. Thank you for being at our meeting. And just want to say to everyone that is watching us live streaming, also welcome to you. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As well, thank you all for being here. Hope everything, hope it goes good. Meeting goes good. I pass it on to County Manager, Mr. Oakley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you there. I do want to take a moment to recognize the Stokes County EMS and the fire departments. They were recognized by the No Bond Help in receiving American Health Association Mission Lifeline Gold Plus Award, and for their excellence and care for patients experiencing cardiovascular emergencies. I believe this is last year, Brandon. I believe you give us some, Brandon. Now you got this last year, and you've got it again this year for hard work and also with the fire department. You guys keep up the good work. That's great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll now move on to our public comments. When I call your name, come up, state your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. I'll hold my hand up and try to finish it up at the end. First, we have Mr. Robert Knight.
Robert Knight, 1220 Hubby Moore Road, Lawsonville, NC. I'm here simply to respond to some of the comments from the previous meeting and to set the record straight. I organized the Foothills Farm Festival on my family farm a couple weeks ago. The event was a last-minute idea. It was put together in 3 weeks and was only possible with a tremendous amount of teamwork from the community. Other than social media, we only had a week to advertise the event. What started as a backyard farm event in Lawsonville surprisingly became a full-blown festival with people from across the state. With this being the first event I have ever put on, I was a bit confused to see the building inspectors show up at the start of the show. They made me aware of the Friday evening complaint. I agreed to let them cut the power off, and we scrambled to get generators together and keep things going. The planning director and the fire marshal offered a generator to help us out. We managed to make it through the day, but 99% of the people put in the same position would not have the ability to get things back up and going the way we did. So basically, my show was shut down an hour after it started. It's apparent the individuals that directed the planning department to go out that morning are not aware of the many exemptions related to agriculture. I'm being educated on this a bit myself. I wasn't aware of the recent changes that excluded electrical from the building code exemptions for farm structures. I now intend to bring this new work up to code. One thing I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is concerning the complaint that was called in on Friday at closing. Larry Lawson came out with the Ruritons Thursday to see about setting up their trailer for selling hot dogs. I wasn't there when they were. Me and another volunteer got there shortly after the Ruritons left. Larry and his wife came back alone. Still assuming he was alone, he began to inspect my electrical. As I walked toward him, he began to go through my panel. I say, "How's it going?" and it startles him. This is when I became suspicious of what he was up to. He asked me to add 2 clear circuits for him. I was more than happy to do so. Nothing was ever said about GFIs or inspections. Friday, Larry came back and I helped him unload and hook up his drop cords. Still, nothing was said about GFIs. The trailer sat there all night, hooked up to the power source he had reported to be unsafe and was aware of the day before. Saturday morning, the drop cords are still hooked up, going fine. The inspectors show up and Larry acts as surprised as everyone else. Larry was operating under the assumption no one would find out he was the reason the inspectors were there. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Darlene Deal.
My name is Darlene Deal, and I reside at 1026 Sizemore Road, Germantown. Today, I'm here to speak specifically on question number 7 regarding the farm day. Question number 7 stated, was any consideration given to notifying the entire Board of Commissioners that the decision had been made to send inspectors out during the weekend to conduct the unannounced inspections? The answer was given, no. There has never been a protocol for notifying members of the Board of County Commissioners for any types of inspections or permitting issues. In Commissioner Morris's blog on social media, I expressed my concerns to this question and more specifically, the answer. My comment was, if the members of the commissioners are not routinely notified, was the chairman, Andy Nicholson, involved in the decision-making at all? Why was he involved? Andy commented back to me that he received the complaint. But why was normal protocol and chain of command not followed? Why was it not inspector, department head, assistant county manager, county manager? In the October 12th meeting in which Mr. Larry Lawson spoke, he said that he called the planning and zoning department on Friday afternoon. Mr. Lawson also expressed some very unfavorable claims against the director, David Sutterth. I personally have worked on and off with David since the early 90s, and as of last, directly across the hall from him for almost 4 years when I worked for the Public Works Department. In my personal opinion, I have never witnessed or heard anything that David Sutterth was anything short of a straight-up professional person. Anyway, my question is still, if it is not protocol to notify the members of the Board of Commissioners, why was the chairman involved at all? Why did Mr. Lawson, the chairman's uncle, feel the need to involve him at all. If the chain of command had been followed, then possibly this whole situation could have been remedied on Friday afternoon as it should have been, instead of after the event began on Saturday. As I stated before, I have worked for the county for almost 10 years over the years. I have never, in the amount of time or while being just a concerned citizen, saw the chairman of the board be allowed to make day-to-day decisions regarding planning and zoning or any other department for that matter. My major concern here is how we treat people. If we treat two of our own, like Robert and Cheryl, like this, how are we treating other people? It has been mentioned this was not political. It became political when a politician got involved, instead of letting the county handle its own normal day-to-day business. If we have the opportunity here to make something really good out of a bad situation, from here forward, we can let the people hired do their jobs. If we trust them with the titles, we should trust them with the decisions. If the Board of Commissioners trust in the process, the public will too.
All right, Ms. Cheryl Knight.
Good evening. Cheryl Knight. I reside at 1220 Hubby Moore Road, Lawsonville. I'm the wife of Robert Knight and current school board member. I want to say I apologize for any unknowing mistakes that were made during the planning, construction, and startup of the Foothills Farm Festival. My husband, Robert, and I were trying to help our community and the county in bringing this agriculture tourism event locally. We in no way wanted to be unsafe. What is unsafe is Andy sending the group out to put a stop to everything. A neighborly phone call would have been nice the evening before and made it not so hurtful or so personal. I'm beyond hurt by the lack of common courtesy and respect that was shown. We were trying to help, and then we were hit and hurt and misrepresented thus far. I do ask or do hope going forward this event can grow and help the area and that we can all work together. For the record, I'm here speaking for myself. I do not need my relatives to speak for me or in my defense. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to our approval of consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one quick question, Mr. Chairman. Could Julia, could somebody answer me what the tourism recovery grant is? It's in that fifth budget amendment you've got in there, fourth or
That's
fifth.
a grant that economic development has gotten.
What's it do? What's it for? Where'd it come from, or?
It's part of the CARES Act. It's to implement a process to keep visitors to aid from contracting. They're going to do videos, protocol, demographics, outdoor events, and travel. Can you make any more comments on that?
For marketing.
Oh, okay.
Just bring money for marketing.
Oh, okay. That answers my question.
Is that it? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll now move on to discussion agenda. First is our salary study, Mr. Phil Robinson with the Mercer Group.
Need to unmute.
Okay.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna turn your volume up less so I can have trouble hearing, okay?
I always have trouble hearing regretfully. But go ahead.
Okay, great. You're on, so we're good.
Good evening.
Evening.
Want to go over the updates that you will see in the report before you from the one that we discussed back on August 24th, unless there are any questions to begin with that you would like to ask before we get into that.
Any questions from the board?
I've got a lot of questions, but I'll wait till after he talks.
I have one.
Okay, and I think I heard that, but when you do ask your questions, please be a little bit louder. I'm old and deaf.
All right, we have one question before you get started. Commissioner Langford?
This survey that you did, I'm sure, and what you're gonna recommend today, does it take many counties involved or just a certain location?
Please speak louder, I apologize.
The recommendation of the, what you're gonna give us tonight, the salary, is it more or less local, or is it serve many counties across the state?
Yeah, you mean with regard to the pay plan and the pay ranges?
Yes.
Yeah, if you'll take a look on page 3 of the report that you have there, we identify where we got our information. What we tried to do was to make sure that we were looking at what we consider your local market, and for us, the definition of local market is pretty much the commuting radius. Where can your employees continue to live where they currently live and still find other employment in driving range? And we've got the counties and the towns and the cities that we collected information from there on page 3 of the report before you. If you want to take a quick look, and if you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Okay, it appears that you have got a pretty good location type thing in your report. So that's what I wanted to find out. Just how many counties, surrounding counties, and how far out you went with the survey.
I'm sorry. If
I
you
can't
could
talk.
come closer to the microphone, or somebody could help me. I'm having trouble hearing you. I apologize.
I would bring it closer, but there's too much reverb with these microphones if I bring that any closer.
Okay, I'm not gonna try anymore.
Can I ask Commissioner Ranker a question? Is this part of what you're referring to, these counties?
Just 1 second, Mr. Robinson.
I think Ernest was saying that he could answer
Yeah,
that.
I just wondered, he's got, like Davie, Forsyth, Greensboro, Kernersville. If that was just the surrounding areas which he put in his report.
So this kind of helps put the pieces together?
Yeah.
Very good.
We gotta go good now.
I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, please continue.
Once again, sir, please.
I said, please continue.
I need to do that.
Please continue.
I'm gonna try to bring you closer. If I get a complaint that I'm getting too much reverb in the mic, I'll have to back it up, but,
No, I can hear you.
well, yeah.
If you want to repeat the question, I'll be glad to try to answer it.
Can you please tell him to just go on and continue with his
You
presentation?
can just continue, okay? With your presentation, and they'll just ask questions at the end or as you go.
Okay. To go with those organizations that we surveyed, if you come down to the next page, page 4, it identifies those that we used in that market survey. And from those organizations using these positions where they had these positions, we use that to develop the pay plan for the preliminary pay plan. We call it a preliminary pay plan because that's what we use to give you the projected implementation pay plan. And the way we construct that pay plan is at pretty much the 50th percentile of that market that you're looking there in terms of organizations. At the 50th percentile, that basically means that overall half of those organizations are paying more and half of the organizations are paying less. And the way we calculate the implementation cost is in the development of that preliminary pay plan, we for each pay grade, we have a minimum and a maximum. The implementation cost is calculated by looking at those employees whose
current salary would be below the new recommended pay grade for their position, and what the cost would be to move those employees up to that minimum of their new pay grade. And that's how we calculate the implementation cost of the study. Any questions there?
Question, board.
No, I got a lot of questions when you're my turn.
Do you want to wait or you want to do it
I'll
now?
soon wait till he's finished it.
I'm finished.
Okay.
I have some questions, but I'm making notes to where I can come back.
Okay. Go ahead and continue, Mr. Robinson. Go ahead and continue, Mr. Robinson.
Once again,
Please continue.
all right, and I apologize.
That's all right.
Between the connection and my hearing, I know it's getting to be a bit old. In recommending that pay grade, if you'll take a look, starting at the bottom of page 5, what we do to recommend a pay grade for a position is we ask the employee in the position here that has the 10 factors that you see on, starting on page 5 and running through most of page 6. We remind everybody that the focus of this part, which is called the classification part of the study, is recommending a pay grade. And answering the questions about the minimum requirements for these 10 factors, we try, everybody remembers that you classify a position based on the minimum requirements that somebody must have across these 10 factors to be hired into that position. And we augment our knowledge of the positions with interviews based on the questionnaire that we ask employees to fill out. And there are levels for each of these factors. There are points associated with each level. And following the interview regarding each position, we recommend a level across all these 10 factors for each position. And in that way, each position has an overall point score. And we use those overall point scores to range together to develop pay grades and make a recommendation for a pay grade for each position. Are there any questions there?
No, please continue.
Okay, once we've put all this together, you'll see coming down on page 7, the recommended pay plan with the grades. And then beyond that, we identify the positions by pay grade. Now, in this pay grade position titles, you'll see that it's different from, if you compare it to the draft final report you saw back on the 24th of August. It's different because of a requirement imposed by state of North Carolina through state personnel for the positions that you have in your health services. Because your funding for the health and social services positions comes directly from the state, their main requirement that we had to change in this part of the report for is that we can't change the titles for those health or social services positions. In your other, in the previous draft final report, I had recommended some title changes there, which in talking or discussing it with the state personnel representative says it's really not allowed in your current funding arrangement. Any questions there?
Questions? No, please continue.
Okay, on coming back up to the implementation that you had in your in your August 24th was not as tight as we had liked because there were still things that we were discussing. And the implementation costs you have here, the 363, 266, 58, we've, in further discussions, I needed to update that. The new implementation figure that we have now will be 369,114, $369,114.10. Coming further down into special provisions and recommendations on the hiring offer, we recommend when you're hiring applicants whose qualifications stated minimum for the position, that with the recommendation of whatever department manager that is and endorsed by the county manager, you can hire someone with higher qualifications than the minimum up to the midpoint of the range. That's based on the, as we talked, or I mentioned before, that minimum of the range is there on what somebody with the minimum qualifications for the position should be paid for you to be competitive at the 50th percentile of your market. Somebody with higher qualifications, you want to offer them more. As second recommendation, we recommend that if you have a way to identify what your local cost, as close as you can, to what your local cost of living has changed from one year to the next, and increase salaries and your pay plan, minimum and maximum, by that amount. Reclassification is when there appears to be changes in a position that may affect the pay grade of that position, or when you create a new position. We're just saying that positions should be reclassified, or a new position should be classified for using the same that we have, that we used in the study. Next recommendation, to keep in mind, a non-classified position is basically one that is obviously an elected position, or one that you don't have the strict guidance of a pay grade arrived at through those 10 factors, and a pay range attached to that pay grade, which has been done in the same way that the study is done. We're saying that non-classified positions aren't part of the study for those reasons. That for a true compensation classification study, that to stay in compliance with what the federal government calls interim equity, we try to do the same thing for all the positions. The next category, or the next in E, we're just recommending that you pay special attention to your turnover rate, track it as accurately as you can, and just bring in that second paragraph just a reminder that industry rule of thumb is that to replace an employee is 2 to 3 times that employee's annual salary. We're also recommending the next step down that movement through the pay range, after you've had economic conditions like we've gone through in the past few years, where there's maybe not enough money or not a lot of money to give increases at the end of the year, you have a way to move people through the range with performance or other criteria, because what you have during those times is you still have to hire employees, and in that way, you are bringing in new employees that may be making close to what your recommending to kind of jumpstart that process and bring more of a reflection in your employees' salaries based on time and position. In the current position, that we do what's called a compression adjustment for all. Not that everybody would get money, but all employees would be looked at with the same form. If you have been with the organization for this amount of time, you should be at this spot in the pay plan. And not to get in your pay range in the pay plan, not to get too far in the weeds there. This is a fairly flexible way to do things, and it's kind of the opposite of classifying a position, in which once a position is classified, you're kind of bound to of the range to be paying the employee. Here, because if we use the same formula for all employees, there's no worry about running afoul of federal requirements, or somebody saying, well, it was an unfair exercise. Is that you can tell us how much funding you have or you want to apply toward this compression adjustment. Using the same formula for every employee, we can spend exactly that amount of money. Again, not that everybody would get an increase. It's just that it was done treating everybody in the same method, and who gets money and who doesn't. Okay, I open it up for questions now.
Okay, who wants to start first? You, Commissioner Morris.
Thanks, Chairman. I'd like to ask a couple questions and make a couple comments, and then let Jimmy or whoever go, and then come back and ask some more later. My first question is for our county staff. When does this need to be approved in order to implement the next budget?
Well, is my understanding that you asked, when does this need to be approved for you to implement it?
We were hoping to implement it.
Yes.
In the next budget?
We were hoping that this would go in effect come January.
I'm sorry,
They're just talking amongst themselves here on the board.
Could you make sure that,
Could you give it,
please,
just,
I'm sorry.
just give us just a second. The county manager Oakley's answering a question, so just hold on 1 second.
Did you hear that?
Would it be better, do you have any questions for him? We'll go ahead and let him answer questions. If there's anything to ask the board, do it after. This way he's not getting
No, I need to do
confused.
another sequence for the reason is, I would like to delay the approval of this as long as we can, in order to, so that I can conduct an in-depth analysis of it. Because I see things in here that immediately I don't agree with, but I don't have the information to say it's wrong without having some, further discussions or whatever. So I would like to, if we can say approve this in the first meeting or second meeting in January, if that still meets the criteria.
Carry it further than that, if you wanted to make sure it's in the 2021 budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, it doesn't have to be too long, but I think that these new commissioners that are coming on board will have to implement this. So I think it's fair that they get a chance to look at it and analyze and ask questions, and I want to do a real in-depth analysis of it compared to our current system and what's been recommended. I agree with the methodology of taking these factors, this FES, we'll use that acronym, but taking these factors and making the determinations on the grades and everything. But as I glanced at them, I just looked at the first one, a pay grade 24. I've got a custodian and a processing assistant 3 on that pay grade. And unless I'm missing something, they do really different kind of jobs, and I was really surprised to see both of them on that pay grade. So, and then I went to the next one, and I saw a processing assistant 4, an income maintenance caseworker on the same grade as an animal shelter attendant, which, what I would like to be able to do, I guess, is apply these factors myself, or either have a detailed discussion with you guys that did this to understand how you applied the factors, because I've got a good bit of background in this and I know what a lot of these people do. So that kind, so I need to really take an in-depth look at this and see if I agree with it or not. And then when I do that analysis, I'll be glad to provide it to the other board members for them to agree or disagree with. Another thing I'd like to have is, I'd like to know if any of the department heads would like to rebut any of this.
You're working.
And if they would, I would like to know what their concerns are, because they're the ones who know the most about how all this operates and the PACE system and so forth. And also like to know if it meets all the, and you mentioned this in your presentation, but if it syncs up with all of the state personnel requirements in the health department and DSS like it needs to.
Can I answer your question about the department heads
Mhm.
before we get too far?
Sure.
He's been working with the state personnel office, so he's covered that part pretty well. As far as the department heads, every time he's updated anything before he brought it back here, we've sent everything out to all the department heads and given them a
Okay.
chance to give feedback back on things, and changes have been made in accordance to recommendations that they had, position titles, a few places in the wrong grade scales, things like that. And that's
Okay.
still a work in progress. A lot of that's been changed already, and I'm sure more will be changed, but they've been a part of that the whole time with
Well,
him.
I would just like for them to be
Yeah.
able to take the final product and tell us what concerns they have about it.
Yeah.
And if they don't have concerns, that's fine, but any that do have concerns, I'd like to have that information to help me do my internal, my in-depth analysis of it myself. Because it's really important that we get this right, and if we've got a little time to work on it, I think it would be very worthwhile to do that. So I'll stop there and then maybe come back with a few more questions after the rest of the board. I just want to get that out at the beginning so you guys can be thinking about it.
Questions?
So we can decide what we're going to do next.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you, sir. I like the approach that Commissioner Morris is describing. Important decisions, I prefer a quality decision versus a fast decision. And to make a quality, fair decision, particularly on something of this importance, it takes some time. It takes some analysis. It takes some thought. And I agree with Commissioner Morris that I probably won't do as in-depth of analysis as he will do, but I have my process I go through, and there are certain things I'll be looking for and expecting to see. Some of them I've already seen are there, like it seems to be very consistent, very fair in its approach toward salary classification. And also, it's sustainable, it's durable, unless I'm missing something. There are a few things, just first glance or so, that if it were totally up to me, they might be just a tad different here or there, but generally, I like what I'm seeing. But in fairness to the situation, it's the new board that's going to have to balance the budget with these new salary grades. I think it might be appropriate for their new board, being 3 new people coming on the board, well, yes, 3 new folks. I think it's only fair, since they'll be the ones that's preparing the budget with this information, that they have some control or some input. I think it's just better for them to make the decision, really. That since they're the ones who have to be doing the budget, kind of living with the decision that's made. But I think, in fairness to the situation, I don't think this is the kind of thing we would want to just dump on our new board, or 3 new board members. I don't see any of them prospective board members here this evening, but hopefully they will be involved in this process. Well, you are, Commissioner.
I'm coming back.
I'm so used to you.
I'm about to say, you already counted him out?
My apologies, sir. I'm blaming it all on the allergies. Yeah, we'll have one coming back, 2 new board members, and one that's getting a refreshed start on the board, another 4 years if he's elected, and more likely he will be. But I think the two new board members need to really be familiarizing themselves with all the background work that's gone into this process. And when it comes time to make the decision that needs to be made, they need to be ready. Another possibility is this current board, with its current makeup, could propose a tentative improvement to be finalized by the new board when they've had a chance to do their analysis and their review. There's a couple of specific questions, very minor really, most of them. I think we added a position, vehicle maintenance supervisor. I don't believe I saw that. Did I miss that? Is that on there?
I don't think so.
The vehicle maintenance supervisor,
Yes.
did you say?
You did not fill that position.
But it will be a position ongoing, so probably would need to be included.
I believe it is there, and I think, is it 37 maybe?
There's two different positions there, I think, for the
Okay, I
garage.
must have just overlooked it,
I don't
because
remember what-
I
I
was
don't
kind
think
of
that-
looking for that and I didn't find it.
I think
So-
the name was different.
Where is it?
Let me see if I see it here.
Let's see. I know what it is on the old grade scale. It was like a 72.
Maybe I just didn't look in the right
Phil,
place.
can you tell them what grade scale the vehicle maintenance supervisor is located on?
Maintenance supervisor, I'm sorry, that was, one of the changes that, changed our,
No, the vehicle maintenance supervisor.
the building maintenance supervisor.
Vehicle maintenance supervisor.
Shannon,
At the garage.
ask him what pay grade that is.
I'm gonna have to, hold on, I need to do a word search. I don't carry.
You know, I didn't put it on the list that I had to do for him as a vacancy because it's not filled right now. And it's not really vacant.
I don't have a vehicle maintenance supervisor, that title.
It needs to be.
That'll be something that we need to note to add. It's vacant. We need to add that. It's vacant at the time being, but we'll need to add it.
Okay, I mean, as long as you can get me a questionnaire and somebody to interview that knows about the provisions of the work, yeah, it would, we could add it.
You should have a questionnaire for that because the individual that left that position was still here when you did those
Okay,
questionnaires.
let me look at an older file.
Okay.
Would that have been Leslie Jones?
Wesley Jones.
Correct.
Okay. This is an earlier file, so I don't want to look at it closer, but
Well, if you can just make a note that we'll need to add that one and we can get you further information if you need it.
okay, no, certainly, I mean, anything that any positions that you need to add. And I can go over the factoring that I had with the position back early on to see if you agree with that, if you want to just use that to make a recommendation for a pay grade.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns?
I have just one or two very minor ones. And I feel like I should have answered one of them for myself by now, but what's the highest pay grade we currently have?
47.
Okay, then I'm looking at it correctly. I was thinking there were some in the higher range than that, so the 47, I'm looking on Commissioner Langford. Well, I've got the information too. That's our health director.
Yeah, I think that's your directors and also the, hold on. It's on the list on page 12, and one additional position that's in the 47 that wasn't in your earlier report is physician extender 2.
Right. I'm looking on Commissioner Morris's. It's so much information, that even though I've seen some of it before, it's a whole lot to try to absorb at one time. And I don't claim to be the sharpest knife in the drawer anymore, so it may even take me a little longer than some other folks. But I'm beginning to fit the pieces together fairly well. I still have some more work to do. As I mentioned, probably not as much as Commissioner Morris, but I do have my own process. Now, how about promotions? What help or guidance can we have in any way that would help determine how promotions are done? Sometimes I've heard things like, well, it's kind of who gets along with who and those types of things. And, you know, having spent,
I was following you until the last part. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just sort of thinking out loud, but I was starting to say, having spent 35 years plus, maybe or so, and we'll say 30, and in a corporate situation, I recall times when there was concern about who got the promotion and when they got it and how they got it. Because, and I know no matter how fairly it's done, how consistently it's done, there's always going to be some folks that feel like they deserve it more than someone else, that type of thing. Well, what can we do with a classification study or any other HR tool we have available to help bring as much fairness and consistency possible into the promotion process?
You must think I'm incredibly slow. I'm missing your question, sir. I'm sorry.
No, it's probably my,
No, sir, no. I appreciate your courtesy, but, you know, once again, maybe a little bit louder, just one main difference, in the corporate world, you know, if you think somebody's done you wrong on your grade or your range, unless you can tie it to some protected class, you know, you have a problem calling wage an hour to come down for an audit. And in the world of county and local government, it's much more likely that somebody, you know, could get an audit by saying, you know, this position like this, and they classified my position like this. I think you need to come down and look at it. In treating every position the same way with the same 10 factors, you're never going to do away with human nature and the concept that you've done me wrong. But there, you know, it's more defensible in saying, for the factor of education and experience, this is what we assessed, and this is the value for that level. And you get over, this is what we assessed, and this is, you know, what we evaluated for that level. And supervision, well, these are who the position supervise. These are the positions that this position supervises, and this is what that level is. So it's to the best you can, the same 10 criteria for every position, which makes it a bit different than the corporate world, and depending on where you are in the corporate world, could be a great deal of difference.
That helps me fit the pieces together better, and I appreciate your detailed explanation. And it sounds like some of that thought and effort has been applied up front in determining the classifications. And I believe the question was asked if someone if an employee feels like initially that their position wasn't classified as well as it could have been, that there are options. There can be a review, and I think that, I heard you saying that in the explanation you just gave also. Am I correct?
That if an employee thinks that their position was classified incorrectly,
Yes, sir.
I mean, of course, they can go all the way to calling the feds, but, talking about it with their supervisor and with the management, the top management there, and I give my side and they give their side, and if top management there says, well, I think for our organization, this pay grade, makes more sense to us. I'm not going to try to in any way make the argument that I know more about your organization than you do. I will make the argument that I know more about the classification system than somebody else. But no, I'm not going to say I'm going to be all torn out of frame because management there or says no. I think this is a more accurate pay grade after I've heard your recommendation on why you made the recommendation you did, and we discussed it. I think it's better at this grade. Yeah, to me that's just that the locality. It's up to you to make the final determination. And if somewhere along the lines, the only possible back channel problem with that is if somewhere along the line somebody calls in wage and hour, and wage and hour says, well, you had a comp class study. Let me hear what the consultant said. And my rationale, but I'm not gonna stick wage and hour on anybody from my end because I just want y'all to be able to operate in the way that you think is going to best fit your situation and your needs there. But I'd be shirking my duties if I didn't say, from my experience, and I'm only offering this as that, for background. I've got 23 years doing this, but just saying from my experience, this is a pay grade that I reckon. But if you ever find a consultant who can get his or her feelings hurt, tell them to find another job. Because in the consulting world, what we're doing is making recommendations, and that's it. I've got professionalism tied up in these recommendations, but I don't have any ego tied up in these recommendations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your the information you just shared, and it's helpful for me to hear it. I'd be hard pressed to think of someone I'd rather see working with us in the capacity that you are. You have good experience, you have good knowledge, working knowledge, and from everything I've seen so far, you're very professional in your approach toward providing a product like you're providing for us. So my comfort level is good going in. I just wondered if there were ripples, how they get smoothed out, and you've gone a good ways toward addressing that, and I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to stop there for now. As the discussion continues, I might have further questions also.
I'm actually going to make a recommendation that we continue moving this right here to November 16th at our budget review. Would this give you enough time to get with the department heads and get the rest of the information that's needed and get Mr. Robinson back on the phone with us during that budget review?
We've pretty much already gotten with all the department heads, and I have printed emails with all their concerns and questions that I've addressed with Mr. Robertson that are being taken care of or looked at. So that will work perfect. That's fine. That'll be a little easier for you probably to hear him at a smaller setting since he can't come in person right now, and be able to tie up some of those loose ends and answer some questions before it comes back to a meeting again.
Okay.
If they could give a final up, based on this final report,
Yes.
of their final set of concerns.
Right.
That would be good.
Is the rest of the board okay with that?
You guys okay with the January time frame for approving this?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Can I ask a question regarding that, please?
Yes, sir.
I think it's more appropriate, and I'm sensing that at least Commissioner Morris agrees, that the board with 2 new members has a shot at doing a final approval to this. But I'm wondering if there's any interim step we might take, some kind of, have things, excuse me, swallow coffee here. I'm wondering if we could have things as wrapped up as much as possible, sort of shovel ready for the new board when they come on. We have the new board.
I don't see why not.
I can have my analysis done by then.
We, I think we were supposed to have a meeting in November.
It's November 16th.
Yeah. Can we be ready by that time?
Yeah, that's what I was
That's what- yeah.
asking them. They said they could be.
Okay.
And then after that, we have the holiday season, which things get very busy, and it's just a different situation also. So, sounds like that might work very well. So let me be sure I understand, if I may. Don't want to overly press the point, but we're going to try to have things pretty much wrapped up on November 16th, having it together as much as possible.
Right.
There may even be some fine tuning between then and January when the
Correct.
board comes on. But the bulk of the work probably would already be done by 1st of December.
Correct.
Very good.
Okay.
A couple more comments and I'll be done.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
One thing, on this thing with state personnel, there's a report that Darlene used to do once a year to them. I don't know if you're doing it or Gail, but
It goes to the Human Resources State Office for
as long
state
as
personnel.
that report's okay, then I guess then the salary study
Yes.
meets the criteria. Will the time we're taking to approve this impact these guys getting paid for doing their work?
No, the Mercer Group, you mean?
Huh?
No,
Okay. I didn't want to hold off paying them while we're finishing this.
no.
At least pay them for the work they've
We've,
done.
we've been paying them in like
Increments.
increments, like, there've been 2 payments made so far,
Like
and then
it's
a final
payments.
payment to be made.
Okay, great. One last thing I would note is this comment that I agree with, that's in the report talking about turnover, where it says the industry rule of thumb regarding the cost of replacing a fully trained and functioning employee is 2 to 3 times that employee's annual salary.
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't mind having some more backup on where you got that, because I agree with it 100%, and I think that's why we need to address turnover and keep a close watch on what our turnover rates are. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try to put something together, but it's an adage that I've heard for a long time, and in my experience, I fully believe it, because during the course of study, the initial interview would have been with a long-term employee that had left for whatever reason. But then the replacement came in, and I'm not denigrating anybody, it's just that a long-term employee, you probably know just from life experience, that there are things that you don't have, that they know how to do. It's just a matter of, it's going to get done quicker, and it's going to get done without extensive assistance from the supervisor. It's just a rule of thumb that I've dealt with, and I truly believe. But I'll try to put together some research for you.
Okay, and then one last thing, and then I'll save the rest of it for later, but this area on movement through the pay range, we have a current system in place that does that. I forget all the details, Julie could tell me, or Shannon, but like with so many years, you get this or that or the other. You mentioned in there that we need to have a policy, I guess develop a policy to go with this on how we're going to move people through the pay range. So I'd be interested in that, and how the compression adjustment that you talk about, whether that's part of moving through the pay range or whether that's a one-time thing, and we can talk about that later.
Okay.
Commissioner Mendenhall, I believe you had a question.
I did have one question, sir. Under your factor evaluation system,
Yes, sir.
you had 10 factors.
Yes,
As
sir.
I read through each factor, some of the factors you used the word points assigned. Other factors you used the word measure or measurements.
Same thing.
Okay, so with those 10 factors, is there a differentiation among the amount of points assigned to each factor, or?
Yes, sir. All 10 factors are not weighted equally. As you would imagine, the highest weight goes to education and experience as a minimum to be hired into the position. Then in that medium area under it, you're going to run into things like independence, the scope and effect of the output, the complexity of the position, and a little bit toward the supervisory responsibilities. And then farther down, you're going to get into the confluence of the purpose of the contact and the type of individual contact. And then you'll get down further into the physical requirements of the position or risks.
Okay.
And that's kind of along the lines of most points available in a factor, but the highest factor again is education and experience.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Walker, do you have one more?
I do kind of a two-part question. I first became aware of a situation when I was mayor of King, and we were doing a salary study, salary compensation study. And I realized that we could do a study, but nothing ever stays the same. That's fine when we do it, but there's a interesting set of dynamics involved. For example, we were known as I'll just take our police department, and we were known as a training ground for larger municipalities, Winston-Salem, Kernersville, you name it. Bigger budgets than King could pay more generally. And we could not outbid these other organizations. And so we had to kind of accept our role, as we would always have some turnover based on we just could not compete with these larger, more financially robust counties. I mean,
Right.
cities, towns. And plus, things change. Take our EMS department here in Stokes, for example. We were having large turnover at one time, and we made some adjustments, and it seemed to help stabilize it. There could be another time in the near future, or not so near future, when things shift and we start losing high numbers of employees in certain departments. So given these two considerations, what provisions do we have to stay fair and consistent, and everyone know, transparent, everyone know how things are? What are your suggestions or recommendations?
Well, we go to the structure of our preliminary pay plan, which is at the 50th percentile, and it gives you an idea on what it would cost to implement at the 50th percentile. If you can, and I can't, it's a board, all of this obviously is a board decision, but over the years, I've found, even I started out strongly feeling this way, I can't recommend a pay plan at less than the 50th percentile. And may be necessary from a funding standpoint, but there's a whole lot in a compensation classification study that deals with human nature. To me, it would be much more damaging for your employees to see the board approve a pay plan that says, well, it's below the 50th percentile, which the employee is going to hear, well, if you expect me to do less than average work, then that's what I'm going to do, is less than average work. This is where it gets into one of the difficulties of being a board member, because I remember making the finals in, for a contract right outside of Atlanta, and the organization said, we don't want you, county or the city of Atlanta or any of the other counties surrounding Atlanta in your market. And, you know, I can't, to me, you're hiring me to give you the best data that I can. And for me, the best data that I can give you is what, you know, the organizations around you are paying and constructing the pay plan. To me, determination on where you want to structure your pay plan, there are things that you can do to make it better usually there are things you can do to make it better in hiring. I've got a client now down in Florida that's an electric utility that they're having trouble getting people in who are going to stay, and we could structure, we developed a pay structure. But keeping employees, the main thing in keeping employees that I have seen, again taking human nature in, is that they see some progress every year. And to me, the most effective way to tell them that there's going to be progress, and I'm speaking personal experience and a little bit from my own view and being employed in local government quite a while back. For me, the more that you can put an employee's future in their own hands with you, the better it's going to go for the good employees. And by that I mean pretty much performance. If you lay out a good solid performance system, a performance measure, and that really is true objective performance measure, my experience is that's something that employees will come and may pass up a higher paying entry position to say that if I go to work for Stokes, then I've got more of my future in my hands than I do if I go to work for Guilford County. And and I probably strayed too far into the personal beliefs there, but I can back that up with experience with a whole lot of local government operations also. But for me, to the extent possible, and it's a lot of times it's not possible to much of an extent at all, but to the extent possible that you can put an employee's future salary into their hands, the better it's going to be for your employees that really have an interest in doing the work.
I like the sound of that because it puts the ball in the employee's court. They kind of determine their own future.
That merit pay he's talking about.
Merit pay.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility that within a range of services you can provide that you could help with a performance evaluation process?
Oh, absolutely. It's something all the way up through not up through the board on down has really got to believe in, and there's no shame in not believing in it, because there are a whole lot of performance evaluations that are pretty much, let me take your pulse now and let me take your pulse later. For me, the performance evaluation looks at several, it's got to be custom tailored for your operation. And as such, it requires thought on the front end and determination all the way through, because I don't recommend a one-size-fits-all on performance. It's the same thing as the 10 factors. You have these factors, but each one is going to measure something. The measurement is going to be a little bit different based on the position. So yeah, performance is what you probably said that I really like to do, but there really has to be a commitment, because it's not it's not as easy as, let me, let me just say it's not easy. It requires commitment, but the values of it are substantial, if done correctly.
I can see how they would be. Hopefully, by having a fair and consistent system, merit system, I think Commissioner Morris mentioned, might be positive and might be an incentive, increase our employee comfort and decrease turnover. And I think that's some of what you said earlier in the conversation. I know it's gone a little long for this particular part of our meeting, so what I'd like to do is have a chance to process a lot of the information, or the information you've given us, both verbally and written, and have a chance to have a further discussion in the near future.
Certainly.
Mr. Robinson, thank you for being with us tonight and giving us the information.
Well, you're welcome. I truly enjoy working with the county.
Well, thank you so much. We enjoy as well.
Y'all take care, stay safe.
You as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll move on now to item B, the PAPR system request. EMS Director, Mr. Gentry.
Chairman White's coming up and ask one question of the clerk or the county manager. Can we somehow figure out how to meet with this guy besides on the phone?
I have tried my best. I have offered every kind of technology to him to try and, like, I wanted to put him on the TV and Skype with him or do something, and he has zero capability. He is not even, a phone is it. So
I get into this analysis I'm
it's
going to do.
hard.
I want to see his supporting data and all that stuff. And so
I want him.
we've got to get him to, I mean, there's ways you can have meetings. Everybody's having them.
Well, I can offer that to him, but he's telling me he doesn't have it on his end to do that with me. He can't do it with his computer. He can't. I said, well, we're going to have to figure out
I
something.
just want him to be in the same room. I want him
Me
to be in
too.
the same room.
I know, me too.
So need to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah. He is completely scared to travel or do anything. I think he's got some underlying health conditions and just doesn't, but it's getting very, very hard
Maybe he
to
sends somebody else or something then.
get this finished.
Or possibly.
I agree.
We should just explore that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. How are y'all? Good evening. I've come to you guys with some quotes on PAPR. It's a power air purifying respirator. Since the COVID-19 has struck, we've been tasked this year more than we ever have, and since March. Some other counties around us started using the CARES Act money for the power air purifying respirator. Yadkin County had got them. We'd looked at them. It's a very nice unit. It's basically a helmet with a high impact resistant shield that seals around underneath your face. It's 99.9% going to protect you from COVID. It's better than an N95 mask. It's got the continuous airflow that's coming through a battery that lasts up to 12 hours, has 3M filters on it. And just requesting, I got 3 quotes on it. I think you guys have them. And if we do 22 of them, that'll do the front 6 frontline trucks, that'd be 3 units per truck. The 2 employees that's working, if we have a third person riding, doing orientation or training a new hire, they'll have access to one also. And we would use these definitely on our transports of COVID-19 positive patients that we know is positive or suspected to be positive. And here in the last say 4 weeks, we've really transported a lot of them here lately. Really been exposed to it more now than we have since all this started. Like I said, that was something. And right now, they're actually, this company that was the cheapest has them on hand. We can access them. He said they've been back ordered, ever since all this started. They actually have them on hand. But the total cost of that would be $31,254. And that's doing the filters and the battery for that and 22 of the head units. And they're all plastic. You can clean them. They're reusable. They can share them between the employees. Any questions on that?
I see that the quote's valid through the 14th, So if this is something that was even passed at the next meeting, which will be on the 10th, will that still give you time to get these things in at the quote they provided?
He emailed Friday. I told him we had the meeting tonight. He said he still had 22 on hand, but they're going quick. So he didn't really say they was gonna be out. It may would, they could become back ordered. So, I mean, it's totally up to you guys. I'd love to move forward if y'all would put that on action, but if not, I understand. And we
Okay.
can try to get them to the next meeting if you guys want to save it to action for the next meeting.
Any questions, comments for Brendan?
I've got a couple. You can go first.
Thanks, sir. My turn. Brandon, I don't think this situation we're in is gonna last forever. There's a lot of different opinions about it, the severity, the longevity of it, that type thing.
Right.
So, depends on who you ask, there's a lot of opinions. But suppose this doesn't last too many months longer, and we invest $31,000 in protective gear. Now, would that be good? Would you need to keep using it after this particular?
Yeah, it'd be
Crisis
something we
is over.
always have on the truck for, if somebody suspected tuberculosis, we could use it for that. If H1N1 come back around, COVID-19 will be here from now on. I mean, it's new to our healthcare system. We will see it. Maybe it won't be as bad as it is now, as many people affected, but, we will continue to see it.
And
Over the
who
years.
knows, something worse may come along in the future.
Right.
We never know. These are unpredictable times.
And for the crews, with air constantly flowing, the goggles are fogging up. We've tried anti-fog. They're wearing the mask. They're, summertime. It's just, you have glasses. They fog up. It's just, this here's better, especially now they put the gown on. It's been summertime. We put them in t-shirts all summer to try to relieve the heat. Doing somebody that's really sick, CPR with all this stuff on, because every CPR we have to wear all the proper PPE because we're doing aerosolizing, breathing for them, giving them nib treatments, whatever. That's when we're really exposed to the higher risk. And this here, everybody says it's very comfortable. The few people we've spoken to at Yadkin County, they really seem to like them. And some of our employees that have beards, they have bought their own. That's one of our respiratory policies. You can have a goatee. You have to have a mask seal for an N95. The people with beards, if you elect to have a beard, they had to buy their own PAPR units. We got like 2 employees that has a beard, but once it started, we did make everybody shave, to wear a mask to make sure everybody was protected because, it wasn't our batteries. How long would your batteries last? If you started getting calls right now, you left the hospital, hadn't had time to charge your battery, how good was your battery? Because a lot of them was used, they bought off eBay or whatever. But this here is a guaranteed 12-hour battery per the manufacturer. It's a lithium ion, so it don't lose the memory once it's charged.
Would there ever be a time, do you think, when you might need any extra batteries?
Yeah, the batteries, from what he told me, the shelf life of these batteries, if we rotate them out, we should get 2 to 5 years out of them.
Okay.
If we're keeping them, don't let one see it that long. Rotate them out, run them, and they're going to have to do like a daily check on, make sure it's operational, and they're charged up, ready to go. Be just like a heart monitor battery. It's continuously checked daily. But the battery replacement, it looks like they're $259 is what the batteries are. So whenever we do have to replace them down the road. So there will be. And the filters, they're $34 a piece. He recommended on the filter, whenever you hear the motor on the PAPR, you start hearing it bog down, it's time for a filter change. EMS relate, he said the filters are generally going to last you guys a long time. He said if you was a welder, worked in dusty environments, you're going to change filters a lot. So our filter use, he said we should get 6 months to a year if we use them every day. Easy in the EMS field unless you're working in dusty conditions.
Well, so it seems that your recommendation is that we move forward on this and do it quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're in stock. We can get them shipped right away.
And if we don't get them, then they may be back
Well,
ordered.
they could be back ordered.
Could be a totally different story.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Morse?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Do we have COVID dollars to pay for these?
Yes, this
Yes.
will be coming out of the CARES.
Okay.
CARES.
How long do they last, shelf life of them, I mean, before they wear out?
There's
Long
no
time?
expiration dates on them.
I mean, but they last several years?
Yeah, I mean,
5 or
for the
10?
EMS setting, I'm gonna say 10 years.
10 years, okay.
Uh,
Will they avoid workers' comp claims?
Will it help
Help
avoid?
avoid workers' comp claims?
Yeah, if they're used properly.
Okay.
Yeah,
If somebody gets sick with COVID, then that's workers' comp, right?
well, if they miss work, we're using the COVID money while they're out.
Yeah, okay,
So, yeah, it does avoid some workers' comp.
okay. Okay, I'm for doing it tonight. Everybody else wants to.
Mr. Mendenhall?
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon, for being here tonight. And I'm looking at this price versus how much it's going to help. And I tell you, a key sentence in your summarization to me says that this protection is 100% better than an N95 mask or surgical mask, which tells me quite a bit about how effective this is. And if there's only 22 available, I mean, the number that you questioned, and they're beginning to run low, I certainly support this, and I'd like to see it move to action tonight.
Is board okay with moving this to action tonight?
I'm fine with it.
All right, we'll put that down as item C. Brandon, stick around.
Okay.
Item C, chest compression system request.
Okay, in 2019, I come to you guys about the Lucas 3 CPR device. We had monies and other line items. We had a old thumper device, which is a mechanical CPR device machine we had years ago, long before I started here. And they were taking them in on trades for this newer technology, the Lucas 3 made by Stryker, which makes our heart monitors, our stretchers. They have this CPR device, it's called Lucas. It's got many benefits. The one we put on the supervisor unit has been great. We've used it, looks like 77 times in 2019, 68 times so far this year. That's been a very good piece of equipment, especially now that COVID's hit. Having one on the supervisor truck, you know, if they're tied up on another call and there's a CPR somewhere in the county, that unit may not be available to get there. Or just say the supervisor's in King, there's a call in Lawsonville or Walnut Cove. The firemen and the EMS are going to do manual CPR by first responders and the employees until the supervisor gets there, and sometimes, you know, their average response time is going to be 20 minutes. Since the COVID, right now in the county, whenever there is a cardiac arrest, 2 fire departments are sent because of the short-staffed during the day, especially to get the manpower to do CPR on someone. 200 compressions in 2 minutes. It's pretty, draws a lot of fatigue to our first responders. Takes a lot of people to do it. And sometimes we do this up to 50 minutes to an hour in someone's residence. Sometimes it's basically our medical director has a protocol set, and it's based off all these medical factors, whether we do it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. Hours are cut off. But what this is doing is exposing a lot of first responders if this is a COVID positive patient. With this device being on every ambulance, using this CARES Act money, it would limit that many people in the house. We could cut down and only send 1 fire department to these cardiac arrests because this device will be on every frontline ambulance responding to the call. And with the firemen and EMS, they can hurry up get this machine on. Everyone else can exit the residence but the paramedics. And they can stay there and do, one person really could, if with this machine going, one person could just about do the medications after they get the airway in place and all that. But 2 people in there, the first responders could be, you know, alleviate, you know, removed from the scene to less exposure. So I know it's a lot of money for these. I know some of the Francisco Fire Department bought one, they got on a grant. So there is two in the county. We have one and they have one at Francisco. And like I said, we've used ours a lot. And with this price that was given, that is with a 5-year service contract. Whenever we first did ours, we did the simple service contract. I talked to the lady about 4 months after using it, and she recommended we go ahead and purchase the higher plan that covers everything with no questions asked, since we was using it so much. And we did that. Francisco's, Lucas, I know they had it serviced whenever we did ours, and just a normal service, she did find something wrong with hers, and it was 30 days out of warranty. She did go back and cover it, but it was a pretty expensive part from what Greg, the previous director, had told me. But the total cost, and actually this quote that you have, they're taking a trade-in still on our old thumper units, and I knew I had 2 in storage that we still have, and I found a 3rd one, and that should be all of them, so you could take $2,000 more off this quote. We'll just have to have him re-quote it, if you guys want to go with that. And this thing is, you know, it's a computer doing it. It takes out the human error and fatigue. And I know in 2018, we had about 60 CPRs. We had 16 that had returned a spontaneous circulation with a pulse, and we transported. 7 of them went home or to a long-term care facility. In 2019, we added Lucas. We had about 10 more CPR calls that year, 22 with a return of pulse, 13 survived and went home or to a long-term care facility. And that's through the CARES registry, and that stands for Cardiac Arrest Registry to Enhance Survival. And so far this year, we're up to 68 and 22 return pulses. And unknown at this time, because the registry's not been updated since April for 2020 to see how many has actually went home or to a long-term care facility. So I do see a little spike in our, you know, we're getting pulses back on patients, because I think it's getting a higher quality of CPR, because it's nonstop. It don't stop. Because actually it runs off a battery. And it has an extra battery with it, but a lot of times when we get in the house, if there's a wall outlet, it's got a AC adapter, we'll just plug it into the wall, and the ambulance that works off our inverter. Because sometimes if we do get a pulse back, that machine's already on the patient. We leave it on until we get them to the emergency room, just in case they rearrest. And at that time, you know, we don't have the Lucas in the county. It's gone to Forsyth or Baptist or Moses Cone. So that's kind of the Lucas 3. And we really need to state there is other devices, but this one has LifeNet, which is part of our whole system. As soon as they get to Wi-Fi, it uploads to our ticket. It does a report. It'll tell you there was 9,381 compressions done. It tells you how long a pause it was whenever you do a pulse check or to defibrillate someone. And this thing, we can set the compression rate. None of the others on the market, we can set the compression rate, and our medical director he didn't want us to have one unless we could set the rate. And this one, you can actually set it 120 a minute. So actually, they're getting 240 compressions instead of a person doing 200 in 2 minutes. That's really about all I can tell you on it.
I don't think you mentioned that we verified too that this could also be purchased with the CARES Act funds.
Yes.
Because it limits the person-to-person contact with them in the homes and enables less people to have to be there with a patient that might be COVID positive or anything else that might be a communicable disease. So it is available for that money to be used from that pot of money as well.
I can't remember. I'm sorry.
All I was
They
gonna
have a
say-
CARES in your packet with I think she could put that in there.
And Jenny, I can't remember, refresh my memory, how much money was left in the COVID fund as of now, around about?
Before you did any of this and with everything else that was coming out of it, it was about $576,000, and that's give or take a few dollars that hadn't cleared or they're still encumbered.
How much is left? 576.
576.
that we can still spend.
There's a little more than that now, but there's some things that are still coming out that were purchased. That would be.
Commissioner Minogue.
I was just going to, that Shannon and Brandon just answered my question. I knew the the PAPR system that we just discussed was covered under the CARES Act funding. And this is also covered under the CARES Act funding. And I certainly am behind this 100%. I just lost a brother 9 weeks ago today to a heart attack. Passed away. I'm very supportive of this, and of course, other board members certainly, I'll let them give their discussion, but I'm supporting this 100%.
Jimmy Hurst, you don't have anything to say? Comments?
No, I'm good with it. We need it.
Commissioner Walker?
Well, I've been on this board for approaching 16 years. I never meant to be here that long, but it just seems to have worked out that way. And consistently or steadfastly, I've encouraged everyone involved to whatever extent possible to have as good a modern quality EMS system as possible, service as possible. The reason is we don't have that many urgent care facilities. Some of what we have is limited as far as what they're equipped to deal with. We don't even have one in King, for example, many hours out of the week. I mean, that's a trip to the other side of Winston-Salem. You make that trip pretty often.
Right.
And so if we can have our units and personnel trained as well, units equipped as well as possible with what's available to equip them with, I'm on board. Now, there might be a question as far as the funding. Is it, how much do we want to keep dipping into the CARES funding, for example, versus our rainy day fund? I mean, what's a rainy day fund for, for example? But I'm certainly on board for working out a way to have this happen. And any other, Brandon, any other equipment that is appropriate and would make our service more adequate to meet our citizens' needs. You know, I'm not going to be here that much longer, but I'd certainly be in favor of whatever else could be done to keep our service at the top tier level. Can you say we're there now?
We are there.
Good.
With
That
the
should be
equipment
encouraging
from
to.
all the board members over the years. I mean, really, our EMS service, I think, as far as equipment wise, personnel, we're up there. We're proud of all of them.
And that should be encouraging to our citizens also to know that they live in a county where that quality of service is available should they have the needs. Pull Commissioner Mendenhall through a couple of times. And we never know who will need it or for what cause, but it's very comforting to know it's there and it's adequate and appropriate as much as possible for our county's needs. So yes, I'm on board.
Commissioner Morris?
Just one question on the CARES money. Do we have to spend all that by end of December or lose it?
December 31st. Yeah.
So,
So
we need to
really-
be, guess we need to be thinking about a spending plan for what we're going to do the rest
We've
of
got
it,
some
which
other things that are coming pretty soon. But it's a really good opportunity to get some of this equipment we couldn't usually get as many of right now while we have it available.
Exactly.
It's a good time to outfit all of our.
yeah, I'm supportive of getting this.
Is the board fine with moving this to action tonight?
Yeah. Particularly, I can see the urgency based on the information Brandon shared regarding the availability of these units, right?
Yeah, these are going, I mean, they're available from what he told me, but you're still looking at a probably 4 to 6 week window to get these. Could be sooner, shouldn't be no more than 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
Because they'll ship them to you, then the lady has to come and program them, set them up for how our medical director wants them. So it takes a
Not
little
quite
time.
as urgent as the filtration system,
Correct.
but still pretty well up the list. As far as
And a lot of counties have been purchases in these for the EMS. So I'm sure they've sold a lot more now than normally.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. All right, we move on to item D, policies and procedure review related to the agritourism. Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the questions that I asked, the answers, we've got the answers, and I don't really have any additional questions. Just let the public form their conclusions based on the answers that were provided. I'd like to move on to policy changes that we need to do in order to promote agritourism. And I don't have a specific plan on how to do that. I guess I'd like maybe the county staff, Will and Jake and everybody that needs to, give us a framework for developing policies that like prevent things that happen that Saturday morning, but also make the agritourism thing as farmer friendly as we can so that they feel comfortable taking on and presenting and doing these kind of events. I'm particularly interested in camping, and maybe we need to look at the whole camping thing across the board, but as I understand it right now, like if we had a band come to one of these events in a Greyhound tour bus, they wouldn't be allowed to park it overnight at the event. So, to me, I think the idea with our camping is to keep somebody from hooking a camper to a septic system and living in it, in a neighborhood with $500,000 house on each side or something. But I think maybe our camping procedures and restrictions are a little bit overkill for that. So maybe look at camping across the board as part of this, because I think all of these kind of events would be a natural kind of a venue for some temporary type camping, and a lot of the campers are all self-contained, so you don't have to worry about any sewer or anything like that. I also talked to Dr. Cope, Emily Cope, the extension director, about this, and she told me they have a whole agritourism department at NC State. So I guess I would just ask you guys to come back and maybe we survey some farmers, get some data from them that do these things, but come up with some policies that really work and make it very feasible to do these kind of events in Stokes County for those that want to put them on without acquiring a bunch of additional risk or anything or concern. So that's really all I have to say about it.
Any questions or comments on this?
I do, but I'll go after whoever else.
Go ahead, Commissioner Moore.
Who's going to take this challenge to put some stuff together?
Well, it would have to be me and Shannon to take care of that.
Do what?
And we'll work with like cooperative extension with Emily and planning and zoning. I mean, everybody would have to kind of sit down together and go through that. And economic development would need to be involved.
Well, I don't feel like I can discuss it without seeing something in writing.
Mr. Walker.
Thanks, sir. I listened to Robert and Cheryl's comments during public comment, and I'm not responding directly to their statements, but I could sort of follow their line of thought. If they had had any advance notice, I read over the list of infractions or violations. A lot of those are quick fixes. Replace a GFI outlet, that type of thing. And so maybe along with looking at the policies and procedures, we could look at the functionality, how timing comes into play. Because a lot of this situation it became a little bit intense, a little volatile. A lot of that could have been avoided if communications among the different people involved could have been better. Could have prevented a lot of emotional feelings and in fairness to the situation, I'm not particularly taking anybody's side or anything, but in fairness to the situation, this seems to have started off as a small local event. It kind of exploded. That people came from much farther and from a much wider area than was anticipated, than was expected. But anyway, there were some things that needed to be corrected, and I think given a chance to correct them, it could have been and would have been. I want to kind of give Commissioner Morris a pat on the back. I don't want to brag on him too much, he'll get big-headed. He says don't. But we need to support agriculture, agritourism, innovative agricultural ideas in our county. We need to use our farming heritage, our agricultural heritage. Things have changed. It's gone from tobacco to other things, although there's still a fair amount of tobacco grown. But there's so much opportunity, agritourism just being one of them, to promote agriculture and agricultural events, all those kinds of things in our county. And you know, I'm not going to be around long enough to kick this can all that far down the road, but I hope in the future there will be given consideration to how we can capitalize on it, help our farmers. Our farmers know how to grow things. Sometimes our vestry has some innovative ideas and some ways to do things less costly, more profitable, and a much better product. He's not the only one. There's many others out there too, I'm sure, that are promoting these same ideas. I've read their writings. But we need to work with our farmers, and agritourism to me is just one way of doing it. There's other ways too that could be very beneficial. So along with agritourism, I'd like to see Will and whoever else is in a particular position to do so, put some time and thought into what we can do for our farmers. Okay. He agrees.
Yeah, I guess I fully agree with you. Like I said before in the last meeting, I don't think there's one single person sitting up here in this room who's against agritourism. And by all means, I believe, and Commissioner Morse, I believe you heard this as well, I actually advertised for this here at this board meeting. Let people know that there was going to be an event like that going on. And I believe this has been thrown way out of proportion. And let me explain. Ms. Deal come up tonight and said she had particular interest in question number 7. And she kind of went through the order. Well, when I'm kind of looking at it, that's kind of the order it went. And no way, no how did I contact the inspections department, nor do I would. And Commissioner Morris, I believe I heard you right one time that you said, I come up to you and asked you, have you got any complaints on the inspections department? And you told me, yeah, I just went up there and got on to them last week, and I believe it wasn't so much of like inspecting, it was attitude. Is that correct? From what you told me at the time?
I don't remember just saying that.
Okay. I remember you telling me you went straight to them, you know, get your act together here. So
I don't agree that I did that.
I remember what you told me, so I'm just kind of bringing it up.
Whatever. I mean, I've dealt with them for 9 years. And
yeah.
All kind of controversial situations, but
I'm sure. And you know, as we heard Robert Knight and Cheryl Knight get up here and speak tonight, the problem of is we got 2 conflicting stories between Mr. Lawson and Robert Knight. Now, who's telling the truth? Don't know. Don't care. That's not our part right there. The only thing that is our part, I mean, have you guys ever got calls from the public with a complaint? Ernest, have you over all the years?
Yeah.
Jimmy?
Could you tell me exactly what you're asking regarding?
Yeah, has any citizen ever called and just complained about anything in general?
Yeah, noise.
Yeah, all right, yeah, well, as he's talked about that before as well. As far as anything else, yeah, I've had people call.
Dogs, you name it.
Yeah.
I've had in 30 years or so involved with local government, I've had a pretty good list of complaints, various things. Some of them you'd almost laugh about.
Yeah, I believe it. There's been some complaints
Some
I've
are
had.
very serious.
Yeah, I've had to contact the sheriff on and say, hey, this is more your matter. Have at it. So even with this event, the only reason why we should even get involved, after contacting our county attorney, and Ty, make sure I'm correct on this, when I contacted you, I told you what the complaint was. You had told me at that time the county can be held responsible if somebody got hurt because they complained on the electrical. Is that correct? And your advice was to get somebody out there to check it, correct? And that was not to stop anybody from having an event, but it was to check out the complaint to see if it was legit, to make sure it was a safe event, correct? Okay.
Safety's primary concern.
Correct. So that then is when I contacted our county manager and he took it from there. So as far as the question and answer number 7, and I'm sure there's things that's happen all the time that happens that you guys have come across. You probably picked up the phone, called Shannon or Jake, let them know what was going on, and they got handled from there. If it was something that had to come to the board, it come to us in a meeting and we discussed it. Is that correct? I'll take your word on it. Yeah? Okay. So,
We don't know what your question
like
is.
if things has happened in the past, y'all would brought it to shaking Janet. If it had to be a board decision on something, then it come back to a meeting, no matter where the complaint come from, then you discussed it then as a board. Is that correct?
Usually, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Usually, when I get a complaint, I have one person I go to in the county. Because I want one person to know as much as possible all that's going on in the county. I go to Jake.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't get resolved in a way that it seems to be appropriate, then I might ask more questions, come back later. But generally, that's all I have to do is pick up the phone and call Jake, and sometimes Shannon, but usually Jake, because I want that one person to know as much as possible who's talking about what kind of complaints are we getting, that type of thing. And that usually takes care of it.
All right. And that's exactly what was done here, and from what I'm hearing, it was taken care of. Robert, Cheryl, was your day of success?
Yeah, it went off well. We had some little hiccups, but, you know, we made everything worked out. The county did offer up a generator for us to use.
The fire marshal.
Mm-hmm.
The fire marshal and the planning director, and that helped out. But there was several different things that had to be powered that we, you know, one of my buddies had a generator welder on his truck. We were able to use it. Another farmer brought out a generator to go behind a tractor to power some of the other stuff. But, you know, I think the biggest concern is there was other people that had other people that have events that have talked with me about it and just having concerns of like, what would something like this, if it happened to them, you know, like we were able to make it work. It's just that a lot of people wouldn't be able to have. And I think everything did work out, and I think that, you know, now with my understanding of the electrical that has to be inspected, now it's like, there was some changes in 2019 apparently, and, you know, I've recently done projects that we, you know, I'm going to work with the inspectors just to make sure that any of the other things that I've done in the past several years, you know, a lot of the infractions that Jimmy had brought up, a lot of that work has been done, you know, 2007, and that was, you know, the code book's changed 3 or 4 times since then, so, you know, we were able to keep a lot of that stuff energized, you know, even though it's not to today's code, but, you know, I just don't want anybody to think that we had a very unsafe situation, that we were careless, but, you know, and more than happy to do anything before the event, but it just, you know, I don't want another situation comes up where it is a last minute like it is, or, you know, for other people's sake, not specifically ours, just, you know, I think there's gonna be a lot of agritourism events comes in, there was, I think, one recently in Surrey County, they had to cap it at 4,000 people just in one weekend, they couldn't handle anymore. So there's possibly gonna be a lot more of these, and we just gotta do what we can to, I know what a lot of farmers are going through right now, so I think that, you know, again, it's not for our specific event, but I see a lot of these coming up, and we've got to really be able to be proactive with, you know, and I can use my diving into this and the things I find out to really educate the different ones trying to plan events, what necessarily show up to a farm and see, see something that's not what they consider up to code that they call in. Because there's a lot, it's like I explained to one person, if all farms had GFI plug-ins that we plugged in, like electric fence boxes too, you have a GFI trip and electric fence goes off, and then you got 40 cows standing out in the middle of the road in the middle of the night, and that's not a safe situation either. So, it's farms there's a lot of different rules for farms for that specific reason. It's not a cookie cutter operation. So I don't want to put, partial treatment, but, being in these little exemptions or whatever, we just got to try and make sense out of all of them, and everybody be on the same page with them.
And did I hear you right, the county bent over backwards to help it? Was anybody trying to say, get your people out of here, we're shutting this down, or was it the county there helping you out?
Like I said, the biggest issue that we had happen with the county was, we had to shut the power down to the main barn. And again, it wasn't anything like everybody's got to leave. We were still able to do the event, but the power did go off to the barn where, like we had 3 refrigerators and 2 freezers just plumb full of food. And we were able to keep that stuff on until we got something hooked up. People stood around and made sure that, there wasn't a kid running around with a hatchet chopping wires or anything, But there was, but like Cheryl said, there was really only 1 or 2 drop cords that was even being used. Everything, the way I had done this new work with the understanding that it was not required to be permitted or inspected. I done this new work. We put an underground line to the barn. We used an existing channel, and we added a few new circuits. That way, everything that was plugged up to the barn, and everybody was away from it, and we didn't have any real drop cords except for specifically the rear controller. But that was
Okay. And trust me, I understand how that is. Even in my line of work, what we do every day, it changes, and we still don't know if any changes unless you go straight to the Capitol yourself and find out. So, and the electric's not something you do every day. You're farming, right? Okay. And that's why I say it's, when you start getting a lot of people like this involved, and when I come back to my point, I was notified at 5:02 on Friday afternoon. Now, it come clear to us that our inspections department was notified by Mr. Lawson directly earlier that day. Now, we've already had a discussion with the inspections department. One thing they said they learned from this is they don't care if it's 5 o'clock, they're going to go out and check it out. If you got some kind of event, it's going to be a lot of people at. So this whole situation has taught everybody a lot of things. That's why I'm actually kind of glad we had this out tonight, because it sounded like there was confusion by Miss Deal out there exactly what had happened. And be able to get this right here cleared up. And that's what I say, you start getting a bunch of people talking, so many things change and different stories come out. So that's all I have to say. If anybody else has anything.
I do.
Go ahead.
What's not clear to me, and I'll go back to it, it was my first question. All these decisions got made by 8 o'clock on Friday night, and I do not understand why they weren't notified right then that this was going to happen. We pay these employees here to use their judgment. Attorneys don't make operational decisions, they give legal advice. And so, I just don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now I find out that this dude was out there on Thursday knowing about this, So,
And that's what I say, you got conflicting stories. I don't know who's telling the truth.
Why did all these county people that knew about this situation, now it must be how many, 8 or 10, fire marshal, all these people, and nobody bothers to call Cheryl and Robert and tell them on Friday night? That just pisses me off, to be quite frank. And I want a policy that keeps it from happening in the future. I hope that's clear.
I believe there is a policy in place. If you get an event,
It must not be working.
well, and here's
I want to.
hush!
I want to focus on the future policy. I want
It
to,
had nothing to do with it.
I want a future on the, focus on the future policy to prevent this kind of incident from happening again, because it shouldn't have happened this time.
One question, Robert, Cheryl, was y'all aware the event permit was supposed to be purchased for something like this?
No, from what I understand, the planning department, they need where it's a bona fide farming operation, it qualifies for agritourism event, which is no permit for a large gathering. One thing that had been confusion during the event was we would need a tent permit. But when I contacted the Department of Insurance, there is a guidance paper from the Attorney General's office. I think it was issued in 2019 that gives some specific information about agritourism events and specifically talks about structures. What parts have to be inspected, what parts don't in agriculture use. And what they said was it could be applied to temporary structures, which tents would fall under that, so it would say that I did not need a tent permit. Now, it's like a $90 permit. I don't mind buying a permit, but the problem with it is, the reason they make it where farm agritourism doesn't fall under a lot of this stuff, you don't have to have like crowd management. You don't have to have you still want to be smart about it. You want to keep fire lanes open. You want to have fire extinguishers, that kind of thing. But just in the tent code, it's like 7 pages of different things that you need to meet. And if you're not permitted and you're not required to be permitted because it's agritourism, then you don't fall under having to make all those things. So, I mean, I'm learning a lot of this right now. You used to being operating on a farm, whenever you have an issue, a barn goes down, or just, you're in rural Stokes County, you're an hour away from most products to keep something running, you figure out how to make it work. And I guess that going from, if you're an event planner and you're a farmer, you're operating under your farming mindset, and there's probably something in the middle. You have to use some things that make sense because you're bringing people onto the farm. You don't want a barn shed propped up with a 2x4, but you use your judgment. But again, as far as the permits, I've not seen specifically where it's required to have a permit, but it's like the Department of Insurance has said it doesn't specifically exempt, but it could be applied. So, I'm not a lawyer, so whatever that means.
Commissioner Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment you and our county manager if he was involved in something that you shared with us earlier. I think I heard you say that there's work in progress, so in the future, as soon as a complaint comes in a situation like this, the one that the complaint is against will be notified. Whether it's 5 o'clock, and the inspectors, instead of waiting the next day, if necessary, will even go out later that day.
From my understanding, there's already an instance where our inspections department has to make a weekend call or something like that, like if an accident or something. But the one thing we discussed during all this was you had an event, it held them up a little bit. Now, I understand nobody wanting to come out at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, especially Mr. Sutter lives down in Yadkin County. I know it's quite a ride. But there was supposed to be meeting up at 7 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't to interrupt. It was to go to check out the complaint. But the one thing I got told him, he was made aware of that before 5 o'clock, so he knew that had happened. So during the discussion, he said, well, if it's one thing I learned, I don't care if it's 4:59, 5 o'clock, we get a complaint on something like this, we're going to go check it out. So that's a good lesson learned there. So
That needs to be put in the policy.
That's obviously, or to me, a step in the right direction toward preventing a kind of a crisis situation like this from happening in the future.
Mhm.
So whatever your involvement was, or managers, or head inspector's involvement in helping bring that about, I think that's a good move.
All right, any more questions, comments on this?
Let's go on. Beat it
I
today.
have one question.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. He's not smiling, but, okay, we've asked for policies and procedures to be refined or kind of given some tuning up and where possible, make them more citizen friendly, whatever. When will we get something back on this? Or what's the next step?
It'll just depend. I made some notes of some things that you all talked about as far as like particular interest in the camping, things like that. Working with Emily Cope at Cooperative Extension, with agritourism with the Department of NC State, bringing back some policies to encourage those kinds of events. It'll take kind of a group effort of everybody. It may take a little time. It may not be in the next month. If that's the question, it's by the time you get all those people together to kind of get some ideas and thoughts on that on paper and get it back to a meeting, it'll probably take at least a month to get all that together.
So by the second meeting in November possibly?
Probably more like December. We have a budget review meeting to get ready for in November, plus 2 regular meetings. So I would rather err on the side of caution and say the first part of December. If possible, yes.
Very good.
Don't need to go too long because they're gonna have an event next year and they need the guidance.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of
Plus
trying to
other
get
people.
together with the Department of NC State, with everybody all together, will probably take at least a month. to
Yeah,
get
I
all that
understand.
information.
That's perfectly logical.
I hope we won't have to go that far with it. Sounds like already fixed. You said you fixed a lot of the violations they found, correct?
No, I've not touched anything.
Okay.
I'm not even back over there.
All right.
Well, I have cleaned up, but I mean, we have, I've talked with them about what we're gonna do going forward, because it was such a good crowd, we considered moving it across the road to a different location and doing like a USDA kitchen and a bigger shelter area and all that, so we won't have to worry about tents and all that kind of thing, but.
Good deal. All right. Don't mind taking a 5-minute recess real quick?
We're gonna have to.
All right.
We're gonna keep on going to midnight.
Any more like one? You got a meeting tonight too. Oh, good. When she was on some sort of, some sort of committee.
Call the meeting back to order. Move on to item E, resolution appreciation for Mr. Saparsi.
Want me to take care of that?
Yes, go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, so, at the past couple of meetings, I think beginning in July, we have been discussing a letter of support. And I think the conclusion at a couple of meetings ago, we would come back to this meeting with a resolution of appreciation. Ty helped to create this and felt like this was appropriate, as we didn't go with the letter of support, but rather this appreciation resolution. I did speak with Emily Cope at Cooperative Extension. I think she's spoken with you a little bit too. And she did provide a letter from Dr. Dale Monks, who is with NC State. Just, I can pass that out, what she sent in today that she got from him, just saying that you were on the right page for not providing a letter of support, as they don't endorse people or individuals or businesses for practices, things like that. So that letter states that from him as well. So in front of you, you've got the resolution of appreciation that's been drafted by County Attorney Browder to look over and see if there's anything that you'd like to change or add about that.
I could mention that I wasn't trying to get them to say that they should support me per se. I'm looking at the potential for supporting the idea of another level of agriculture, which is actually already in place. The sustainable agriculture is already a part of the USDA program. The sustainable agriculture includes ecological preservation of the soil and all those kinds of things. How that is brought about is, continuously developing. So it goes by different names: regenerative agriculture, ecological agriculture, organic agriculture. And some of those processes, like organic agriculture, are not that cost effective. You couldn't actually do it at scale very well. This bionutrient agriculture or regenerative agriculture, both very similar, can be done at scale for thousands of acres and is cost effective for farmers. So I'm going to go out and just promote that idea and get that as an opportunity for Stokes County to be a leader in agricultural knowledge, agricultural practice that would benefit the farmers, benefit the people, create a higher quality product, increase income from higher quality products. So that's my my thrust. Kind of interesting because I talked with Dale Monks as well. Had a long conversation with him on the phone, and he mentioned, one way we judge the quality of the land is by how many earthworms there are. So he was aware of the process, aware that the soil could be regenerated enough to create natural fertility without much need for fertilizers and so forth. His concern was, can it be done cost effectively? And he mentioned that there is the potential that as you begin that program of not using toxic chemicals that would affect the soil life and work towards a biological increase in soil life, that you could have somewhat of a dip in production for about 3 years as the soil is being regenerated. And I said, yeah, I know about that. And so the way that's compensated for was through foliar sprays, to give the plants additional nutrition through foliar spray, rather than trying to get all their nutrition from the soil, which has not yet been upgraded. So he wasn't aware of that approach, and that approach is not yet taught in the universities. But there's a lot of development going on in the field of agriculture. And my idea was not to force anything on anybody, but just to offer some ideas that they could try out on their own, some of their own land, not to try to convert everything at once,
I'm sorry, Mr. DeForest. Commissioner Walker, do you have a-
Yeah, so actually, I know, I'm probably as strong a supporter as you have on this board, and thoroughly buy into all of, at least most of what you're saying. Some of it needs to be, for me, thought about more, but it all seems to make very good sense. But actually, what's on our agenda this evening, and we have a pretty crammed agenda, is this resolution that the board is considering doing for you. Have you read it?
Yes.
Now, do you think that would help as far as your contact with the farmers? If you approach Mr. Knight, for example, and it's talking about you're trying to do good for the county, that would be a positive start to a conversation with him. I think you would find that favorable, Robert, if you had something, a resolution from the board, a resolution of appreciation. Sarvastri has come before this board, brought more information than anybody else ever, to the best of my knowledge. He's been a strong, steadfast supporter of our county and offered many good suggestions and options. And I think the letter of appreciation is very appropriate. Hopefully that would help you.
It will help. It's not as targeted towards agriculture
Right.
or
Not as
linking the
scientific.
health, agriculture, and farmers all together.
Right.
in
But this would be our way of
But
saying.
it would help. It would.
Yeah, this is our way of saying he's a nice guy and he means well.
Yeah.
Is everybody in favor of the resolution here? Does anybody see any questions or comments with it?
I'm in favor.
Okay. All right, we'll move it to action for next meeting. Is everyone okay with that?
Or even
Agenda.
if it's really quick, you can move it to action this meeting and we'd be done.
How does the board feel?
Well, I don't know that it meets our urgency test. Put it on maybe the consent for our next meeting.
Commissioner Morris? Commissioner Langford?
Yes.
Mendenhall? We'll do it. Thank you.
All right, so next meeting it would be
It'll
the.
be on the
Put it on our
consent.
consent agenda, Sarvastri, so that when we pass the consent agenda at our next meeting, this will be approved.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Move on to item F, the City of King Planning Board reappointment. Mr. Oakley?
Mr. Chairman, we have received a request from the city of King for the reappointment of an ETJ member of their district, Norma Cox, the board member. Cox is willing to serve and has been serving, and the planning board is recommending her to be reappointed. That said, I'm going to let Shannon tell you the steps that needs to go through as far as your nomination.
You'll just need to do your normal procedure and open the floors for nominations, and then once you do that, I'll be able to advertise that position and we can put it on action for the next meeting.
Okay, I'll open the floor for nominations.
Norma Cox is
Move
the,
that the nominations be closed.
Second.
Discussion on it.
She's a nice
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Poll the board as well. Poll the board, start
you
Commissioner.
don't, no, just, we'll poll them next time
Okay.
after we do the advertisement.
All right.
We need to vote on the motion.
Just a vote, just a yea or nay on the motion, is all I need.
Okay.
Not poll the board, but just.
Everybody yay?
You need to do the usual, all in favor.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good deal. All right, item G, the fire commissioner appointments. Ms. Shaver?
So I received a request for 2 vacancies in the fire commissioner civilian positions. The appointments for those are about to expire, actually at the end of the month. They didn't get those in until just the other day from the fire office. But either way, those 2 appointments are for civilian appointments, and they're for Steve Fagg and Robert Knight. And I've been informed by Donna Craig at the fire marshal's office that both of those gentlemen are willing to continue to serve on that. I've already actually put this out for advertisement just so I could go ahead and put all this information out there for it. So it'll need to stay advertised once you do your nominations tonight, and then it can come back for action for the next time.
All right, open the floor for nominations.
Make a motion, nominations are closed.
We need to nominate.
We've got Steve and Robert
We
only.
need to actually nominate them.
Okay, make a motion that we accept the nominations of Steve Fagg and Robert Knight.
Have a second?
The nominations be closed.
Thank you, Jim.
Second on that?
Second, Morris.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item H, the county website hosting change. Ms. Shaver?
So I've been speaking with Diana Folk, IT director, and we have received information, they received it just a while back, that the state has been hosting county websites for quite some time at no charge, and that has ended. And they were stated to her that we're one of 2 counties that's not yet actually gone out and done our own website, and they're still hosting it. That's coming to an end, as they say, ASAP. So we're going to have to find our own funding for that and do that. She has been working with 3 different companies that she considers reputable companies represent North Carolina counties, and gave me some information on those companies and what they could do. And in your agenda, I noted in there that some of the counties they had worked with recently were Edgecombe, Gaston, and Surrey County. We were receiving, Diana and I both were receiving a lot of emails about CARES Act funds for this, surprisingly, because a lot of counties have chosen to update their websites during COVID to make it more user-friendly and have less foot traffic in their offices, like making editable PDFs on there for forms, things like permits and things like that that could be done and submitted rather than having to come into a county office and do it. So there's a lot of ways to tie it into social distancing and reducing your foot traffic. And so the preliminary part of this expense could be funded from that money. Now, of course, we'd have to do the yearly support fee every year. And the amount that she quoted me the other day was $17,000 for a startup and $3,000 for the yearly cost for them to help them manage everything. But the actual quote that she finally was able to get today from the company was $13,000 for the website design and hosting, and $2,500 for annual maintenance. So the first initial cost would be $15,000 rather than the $17,000 plus the $3,000. But then we would have that $2,500 annual maintenance coming out of the budget every year. But it's sort of a we have to do thing because the state's no longer doing it. It would make our website, the examples that she showed me from Edgecombe and Gaston and Surrey, if you look at those sites, those websites are really user-friendly. They have a lot of search bars that you can search. Our website's a little busy sometimes. It's kind of hard even for me that I use it a lot to find things on it, whereas those are much more broken down. You can go in and search items, pull up. We're also going to make some tabs for ordinances and things and frequently asked questions and information people search all the time for that. So it'll kind of be up to us and them to build it. But another reason too now is because the state is urging us to get it done. They want it done yesterday, and they want everybody moved off their system. But while we can use this funding to get it started, would be a good time to go ahead and take care of that and let Diana and the IT department move forward with working with this team to get it completed.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask her,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Board Clerk, a question? Shannon, you talk about as soon as possible. Now, you talking days or weeks or months?
Well, I mean, this meeting's great. If it's next meeting, that's okay too, just so we get a general concurrence that you're okay with her using the funding from the CARES Act to do it with, so she can start letting that company know they can start working with her on that.
Right. May I continue, please? To me, it doesn't matter whether the funding comes from the CARES Act or not. This is routine county business, and we do have an opportunity for things like this with the CARES Act. But kind of a question I've developed is how much do we want to keep taking from the CARES Act? Maybe further discussion about the particulars of that at a future time. But this probably should have been done before now. We're one of 2 counties out of 100.
That's what Diana told me. Yeah.
That have sort of an outdated website.
Well, it's not just outdated, it's the fact that
It's just complicated and it's not pleasant, not user-friendly. And I have a challenge using it myself. Now, you said 2,500 initially and 1,700 ongoing. What kind of website do we get? I'd like to see us have a top quality website. One that's at least as good, hopefully better than most other counties. Will that be what we're getting?
Yeah, and it would be 13,000 to do the design and the hosting and
Oh, okay.
2,500 annual maintenance. So the first year would
Gotcha, my
be
numbers were
15.
mixed up. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay, I wanted to make sure you didn't misunderstand me.
I did.
So
Thanks for clarifying.
So, yeah, and I mean, if you take a look at those other counties that we've got listed on there, the group that she's talking to, they designed their websites recently, and we do something sort of similar to that approach on how those look and how they're laid out.
And can this be tied in with tourism?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, now we have some links to there when you go off and look at things for economic development that link to videos that have been done. Tori's been working on a lot of those, but yes, absolutely.
Very good, thank you.
And the company that she's wanting to use, she's got a couple quotes from other companies, but they're the least expensive, and she's just has a good feeling about working with them. It's called Revise, like Revize company. Out of the three that she's gotten quotes from, that's the one that she feels the most comfortable using.
Shannon, what about our department we already have?
IT?
Yeah.
Well, they'll have to still do their normal things like actually add things to the website, things like that, as far as they get requests from department heads to add items on there. But as far as within their department, they wouldn't be able to actually create the actual website and manage it completely, all just them. So
This is strictly for someone to house
just
the.
a website design and to house the website. They will still take care of uploading things to the website, general kind of maintenance
I understand
things.
that.
But the state's been hosting our site all this time for
How many
no
people we
charge.
got in IT?
3. But we have to pay to have our website hosted.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please follow? Who would own it? Would the site, would the folks who develop it own it, or would we own it?
We would own it. We would own it.
That's a
It's
question you
outdated.
have to ask IT. I didn't get that in depth, and Dinah didn't give me any information about that as far as, I mean, it's the county website, but I'm sure like anything else, if you didn't pay your fee, I'm not sure how that works with your,
I
domain
think
names
it
and
goes
things
back
like
more
that.
to the domain.
Yeah.
Because I know like in our company, like the people we pay for it, they own it.
Right, the domain to it.
But it's our data, correct?
Sorry.
It's our data, correct?
More questions, comments on this? How's the board feel about moving it? Would you prefer to put it on action next week or tonight?
The next meeting?
Next meeting.
Yeah, what she was really asking for
I'd like to
was,
see it.
what we won't be able to actually, you can look at examples of counties that have
Well, that's
went with
what I'm
them.
saying.
And yeah, I've sent you that information in the agenda. What Diana's asking for so she can start working with the company to design it is to move forward with the redesign and allow the county manager to sign off on it as they need
Okay.
things signed to move forward with the process, because it takes some time to get it up. So,
Good.
All right, we're going to move on to our action.
can we do that tonight for her so she can start on the process of getting
We
that
have
done?
consensus to move forward at that level. We're not incurring a lot of expenses, I don't think, at this phase.
No.
Is consensus
Yeah.
sufficient, Mr. Chairman? Yes.
Using COVID money?
Yes.
Yep, I'm good.
Commissioner Manhole, good?
And I can send you like direct links to where you can look at the websites that have been created by this same company. If as far as you just click on them and see it.
I just looked at Surrey County, it looks nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a lot. Our page has so much on it when you first get on. It's kind of overwhelming to try to find everything on there. So.
Now we move on to action agenda. Item A, the Stokes County Health Department request for hazard pay and budget amendment number 33.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Item B, demolition of the county-owned property. I have a motion on this.
I make a motion that we do it with the exception of the one building that's being used for storage and the lot and everything. That we hold that till a future date. I actually went and met with River Street over there Friday with their facilities guy. They spent $35,000 over there fixing up the building and fixing a flooding problem, and putting up fencing and doing the lot, and they're gonna be doing both a wireless and a more fiber, so that it's gonna be a busy place, I think, that they'll really need, so I'd like to hold it out of the
What about the
demo
old,
plan.
sorry,
Otherwise, I'm,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
what about the old jail itself?
That's part of it.
Over the years, I've heard people say there's a lot of history there and they want it preserved and all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got a motion. Do I have a second before we go into discussion? Commissioner Walker, I'm sorry.
Who made the motion?
I do.
Okay. Second, and then.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good catch.
Got ahead of myself there.
Good catch.
Yes,
I
sir.
started discussing too soon.
His fault.
Now, for some reason, I didn't get the all the motion. What is the motion?
Motion was to go ahead with everything that was on there except for the building behind the Foss building where River Street's currently at, using, to leave it off for the time being.
And then I was discussing, but deferred it till this time, about the old jail building itself. I've had people over the years talk about all the history there and everything, and they didn't want to see that building demoed. But I can go either way with it.
What building we're talking about?
The whole prison camp over everything.
Old prison
The
camp?
whole
Tear it
thing.
off.
Okay.
Ain't that correct, Mark, Glenda?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Could you mind bringing that forward so Commissioner Langford can see that?
Actually got a video of the building if y'all want to see it.
Close it down too.
Let me see if it'll work here. Darn, it's just the one building I'd like to keep is the one that's coming up. That building right there.
Okay.
Because it's a block building, it's really good shape, and
Yeah, I've been over and looked at
they
it.
fixed it up, and they're still using it, so.
You're gonna get rid of the bees too.
Now, we're talking about, what is the cost on getting this cleaned up?
The low bid was $110,000. Glenda, do you remember?
I've got it right here.
And that includes the house also.
Correct, yeah.
Is the house too far gone to try to salvage?
That was a good house last time I looked at it.
You want to rent it out?
Huh?
You want to rent it out?
Oh, I don't want to rent it. I'm just saying that, the house is in pretty good shape.
I think it was just pretty much getting it all cleaned up due to the fact of, was there evidence of people hanging around in that house as well?
No,
No?
the house, you mean, the
Yeah.
Blunt's estate? No, it was just part of a bid to get while we were doing this to see what the cost would be, because the whole point of purchasing that house was just to purchase the property that would be adjacent to the county-owned property already. The plan was to tear it down, so if we could get a quote for it while this was going on and make that happen at the same time.
Right.
So,
My understanding, last time we discussed this, that we was gonna wait till November on making that decision.
That's what I thought.
And we can.
Well, I mean, that was what we left with.
That was my understanding. Was it be November?
I'm fine with waiting till November as long as the bids don't expire.
Is there a time on this that you?
their proposal, so I don't know, do they have a?
So, and the reason we did it that way is because there was no allotted funds available at the time. And when I sent the memo out, Shannon had asked me to do something to get bids. So the easiest way to get them is to send out an RFP, because you can send it out to multiple people. And believe it or not, I can't tell who's who, but there is a lot of interest from people outside of this area, which I was very surprised at, because I only posted it on the website and sent it to our local vendors list.
You have what, 10 bids?
I think there was a total of 14,
14, okay.
12 to 14. So, I mean,
There's 11.
11 total. A lot of them were local people, a lot of them were from different states. I was very shocked that those, because we didn't do it the normal bid process of, a lot of advertisement. It was just kind of, I sent it to our vendors list and then we posted it. But in my memo, I stated that we did not know if this project would continue or if it would stop. Whether they will continue, it really doesn't have an expiration, but I would say normally you're looking at 30 days when we usually do with the normal way. I would say it's probably not going to stay forever.
Right.
I can contact the ones that did submit and ask them how long their bid would be, or their proposal would be.
Which our budget review is November 16th, so I mean, it's just a couple of weeks away. I wouldn't think, I don't see a spike in gas or anything like that. It's
And I'll
almost
be glad to
prompt
do
for
that. I'll be glad to
in
send
there.
out, because I have a list of who I'll send in. A lot of them did the email form due to, they wanted to do it the cheapest way because we didn't really know whether we were going to go through. And I'll be glad to do that and just say, could you, is your bid good through for 30 days, 60 days? And ask that question. That's not a problem.
It's real important that we don't lose that low bidder because he's 50,000 cheaper than everybody else. So
Agreed.
if you see anything about to happen with that, I'd move it quicker.
Yeah.
I kind of want to refresh everybody's memory on this. When the wellness center was talked about being built, wasn't it estimated about $200,000 just to clear up that little spot without the house and everything? Is that correct?
Right around 100.
I don't remember.
130, so it was even higher for less work.
Yeah, it was 120 something, and then Perry's estimate was a lot higher, but he was including site-ready grading.
Right.
So that was the difference in his
Okay.
estimate.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and
So you
everybody's
got a
fine.
motion and a second on that particular thing, and we're going to wait till November 16th. Do you think they need to vote on that motion and that second that's there?
Can we table it?
Well, also, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may,
sir.
please. We have is that our regular meeting? And that's after our regular meeting, so we have
Regular
another,
meeting.
Yes.
we have another meeting before that, on the 9th, I guess it would be.
So, yeah. We have a commissioners meeting on the 9th, and then we'll do the budget review on the 16th, and we'll have another commissioners meeting on the 23rd.
So we have our budget review is on the 16th.
Yeah, it's in the Monday in between our two meetings.
I'd sort of like to wait I'd sort of like to wait to November to have budget review.
Okay.
That's just.
I've got that down. I just mean since there's a motion and a second, do we technically need to do something with that particular?
Withdraw it, I guess.
Just withdraw the motions.
And
Okay.
agree to wait till the November 16th.
That's fine. Everybody good with it?
I'm good. If anybody happens to be over there, ride back there and look, and you'll see all the improvements that's been done to it.
I think Glenda took some pictures today too, just in case anybody wanted to see it.
I think even if River Street wasn't using it, we probably ought to keep it for our own use.
I put the fence up, so I know what's there.
Yeah, I know you.
I took some random ones. I wasn't sure exactly what all they had done, but I just took some today. Y'all can pass some around. We can make some more if you need to.
Thank you.
All right. Item C, the PAEPR system.
And that's the power air purifier respirator
Right.
system, 22 units. And that's the cost of $31,254.55 to come out of the CARES Act funding.
Make a motion that we approve the PAPR system to be taken out of the CARES Act funding.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item D, the chest compression system.
And on that one, he was requesting 6 units, and the original cost was $110,299.10. But he did say they had a $2,000 trade-in on that tonight. So that would bring the total to $108,299.10 to be paid out of the CARES Act funding for the chest compression system request.
Motion to approve the chest compression system with the CARES Act funding.
Have a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Shannon, can you take us in the close?
To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Do I have a motion on the close?
Motion we enter closed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Closed.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Wait a minute.
I need to talk to you
Tell me when
about it
it's,
after the meeting.
Shannon, tell me when it's on.
We're off.